Welcome to another podcast episode of the She's an Asset podcast with your host, me, Autumn Schmidt. I'm excited because today we are in our series of the Maine edition and we are interviewing women in Maine who are making an impact. And today I'm bringing to you somebody who means a lot to me. And you've been so supportive of me since the moment you came into my class, which I think was 2 years ago now. Bobbie has not only attended and hosted a class, and then she put on like a mini event up here in Bangor. And then she came all the way down to my event in Portland. So thank you so much. Bobbie, can you please tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. I first want to say that supporting you is my honor and pleasure. I have so much respect for you and what you're doing, and you are an amazing role model to women, young women my age. So I want to thank you for that, because there's nothing like that out there. Right. And I just think that it's so needed. So I do want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm flattered that you put me in the same category with some of the other amazing women that you've had on the podcast. But a little bit about me. My name is Bobbie Grenier. I am a Maine native. I'm
a Maine girl,
born and bred, and you have to be born here to be a native. That's a question that gets asked, but you have to be born here.
Yeah.
I'm a real estate paralegal. I've worked for Tribogee and Baldacci for 22 years. Actually, 2 days ago was my 22nd anniversary with the company. Thank you. I really love the real estate industry, the title industry. I've been in it for quite a while, and I am a mother of 3 amazing kids and 1 bonus kid. I am a wife, I'm a photographer, and I'm a podcaster.
And you're a dog mom.
I am a dog mom.
Yes.
We have a boxer named Maya who is sassy and runs the joint.
I love that. Yeah, fellow dog moms here.
Absolutely.
Unite, love dogs. What's the name of your podcast?
The name of my podcast is the Maine Real Estate Roundtable Podcast. I am on a hiatus right now. I really had to look at what was going on in my life, dealing with some stressors. So I had to edit a little bit. And that was something that I could put on pause. But I'm missing it. I'm really missing it. And when you stop doing it, you probably, when you took your hiatus, you probably found the same thing. I had so many people reach out that I didn't even know were supporting the podcast, listening, enjoying it. So I'm considering, it's nothing definite, but I'm considering rebranding it.
Love it.
Getting back in my lane in title and doing something along those lines. So it won't be this fall. I've got a pretty busy summer coming. Obviously, summer for real estate is the busy season, but that is in the back of my mind because I miss it. I enjoyed it and I really miss it.
I love that you say that. And we're going to make sure that we have that in the show notes. We'll link it just so anybody who's listening who wants to continue to check you out. Bobbie has graciously interviewed me a few times. So we definitely want you to go check that out. But Bobbie, I have to tell you, I've got to just bust you a little bit because I told you, because I remember when you're like, Autumn, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I'm burned out. What people don't understand about podcasting is it is a lot. This is when I'm on, and I've been doing this since 2018. So when I'm on, I'm all in. That's the thing. You're all in. You're thinking about episodes. Who can I interview? How can I bring value to the people? Then we're thinking about the editing and the marketing and how do we get it up to different places and what do we do? So it really is this all-encompassing thing. I've taken multiple hiatuses. I have rebranded this podcast so many times, and I still have listeners who have been with me from the beginning. And I just want to say, and this goes for everybody, not just podcasters, but we never know who we're actually impacting. We really never know. And I will tell you, for me, and then we're going to get back to you, but I just want to say this is when I first started this podcast, if you go to the first 20 episodes, you hear a very angry, hurt police officer. And I think we've talked about that. But then I stopped. I was like, I'm good. I'm done. I vented. And my inboxes, just like you, my inboxes were flooded and I had no idea who was listening. And I just think that's so much how it is in life and we don't know who we are impacting. And so I'm so happy to hear that you're going to be potentially coming back because your podcast is one of my favorite podcasts. And so I think that's really important.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear. And I started my podcast without really knowing where I was going with it. I just wanted to see if I could do it, figure it out. I was really entrenched in the technical part of it. And you and I, we always laugh about it because we're very different. You know, I'll have notes and outlines and you just roll with it, which probably is the better way to do it. So I really think this is a good thing to step back, take a look at my why. Why do I want to do this? You know, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, and you really need to focus on why you're doing it and what you're putting out there. But I learned so much. That was really one of the biggest learning experiences of my life. And my first few podcasts are probably a very shaky voice, almost sort of like an apologetic. I know this isn't very good. Thank you for listening. But I really grew a following, you know, and a lot of women in real estate, you know, guys too seem to like it. So, but I got very much out of my lane. And it was fine because I was interviewing people that were in their lane, you know, experts on different subjects. But I really feel like I have a lot to give for the knowledge I have in my, you know, 20 plus years in title.
Absolutely. And in life.
In life.
And I'm excited because that's why we have you on today's podcast, is to talk a lot about, you know, we talk about this as the main edition. I'm focusing on women of impact. And here's what I've learned. Here's the pattern. You know, I've had an opportunity to sit down with probably a half a dozen women so far. And Bobbie, the thing is the women of impact have all gone through a lot of shit. And I know you have. And I want to highlight that because, again, I just am so concerned with women who are the stay-at-home moms or working from home or, you know, in a job that isn't their dream job, and they start beating themselves up. I'm no good. I'm not good enough. I'm not like Autumn. I'm not like this woman. I'm not like Bobbie. I could never be like Bobbie. I could, right. And the thing is that we know, yes, you can be whoever you want to be. And I want them to hear your story of what you've gone through. So would you take us back and let's start at probably from what you can remember. What is like one of the hardest things that really shaped who you are today?
There are many things, but the thing that really comes to mind is something that happened. I'm 58 this month. Happened in my early 50s. It was happening up to, but my marriage of almost 30 years ended. And I went through a really hard time with that. My youngest daughter was a junior in high school. I mean, so I didn't have little kids. And I went through a period of sadness and anger.
Who were you? Would you mind me asking, what were you angry at?
I look back and I think it was the anger phase of grieving. I was grieving the end of my marriage. I was grieving what my life was. I was scared of what my life was going to be. I was, again, in my, you know, I was like 52, I think, 50. So that's a really weird place to think about sort of starting over. And that's how I looked at it. I directed all of that anger at my ex-husband, undeservedly, you know, and I'll get into that a little bit. But it just was easy, you know. And so, have you ever seen the movie Something's Gotta Give?
Yes.
Okay. You remember the part where Diane Keaton's heart was broken? And it did this sort of montage where she cried. She cried in the shower. She cried while she was working. She cried driving. That was me. No joke. That was me. I held it together by a thread. I went to work. I went to my, you know, daughter's events at school. I did all the things, but that was me on the inside.
Really?
And yeah, all the time. And I was angry. I was bitter. And I, more than anything, looking back, I was scared of what I was going to see when I really had to deal with this. So I had a really big aha moment. I was driving, actually back from a closing, and I was on the road and I saw a truck coming towards me. And I thought, oh, thank God, this truck's going to hit me and this can all end.
Mm.
That truck didn't, it actually did hit me, not head on. So I did get in an accident. I, by the grace of God, walked away,
Wow.
just a little bit bumped and bruised. That scared the shit out of me that I would have that thought. But it was real, probably fleeting, just a few seconds. That was real. And that's when, and this was after several months, of living in this, sobbing, sloppy, horrible state that I was in. But it scared me. And it was my moment, my defining moment to say, get your shit together. So I immediately went to my doctor, got referred to a therapist. And that's when the really hard stuff began. So I sat down with a therapist and, we sort of did our introductions. And she said, what are your goals for yourself? And I could not think of one goal for me. Not a long-term goal, not a short-term goal, not what I was making for dinner, what I wanted to do that weekend. I was so consumed by my grief and my anger. I was so consumed by that it actually made me more sad because I thought, what have I done? I wouldn't take back the mom I was raising my kids.
Of course not.
But I completely lost myself. And in doing that, I was not able to be a good wife. And I started slowly seeing and taking the responsibility for my part in the divorce.
Wow.
And I have an amazing group of girlfriends that are like, no, girl, it's all him. It wasn't you. You're perfect.
We love them.
We love them. We love them. And I needed that at one point. But then it's like, no, it is empowering to me to take my responsibility so that I know that I had a part in this thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me so much power and strength. And it's a really odd thing because I'm not being self-deprecating. I'm not saying, I deserve this or I deserve that. It was two people that were in a marriage that did not take care of it. And it ended for various reasons. So that really was the beginning of me finding myself. And I'm still working on it, Autumn. It's not, it's not like okay, I'm here, I've arrived. And I think that that's, a message that I want to get out to women is to continue to work on it. And don't, I always was, I'm into raising my kids. That's what matters. That's what happens. We'll work our stuff out when they graduate. I don't know what I was thinking, but you're just bumping along in life, doing the best you can. Mm-hmm. And when it all falls apart one day and you don't even recognize yourself when you look in the mirror, it's really, really life-changing, but needed to happen.
I have so many questions. Do you mind if we go back?
No.
Bobbie, that was incredible. And what's so interesting is the people who know you, and when they hear this, they're going to be like, holy shit, because you are so incredible, especially in the real estate community up in Bangor, but you're known across the state. I mean, you've been there 22 years. You've helped so many women. You've helped so many realtors, men and women. You've helped so many people. You've become such a staple in the community. And this is exactly what I love. Like, thanks for going here because it's real. You bring tears to my eyes simply because I can relate. We could both say you weren't suicidal, but you didn't want to be here. You were like, take me out. I'm good. I don't need to be here. And I have been there, and so many of us have been there, and we don't like to admit it because we think it makes us weak, but it doesn't, because it just makes us human. And what I love is you went from there, you're here, and we're going to talk about that. But actually, I have some questions that I wasn't even sure that I wanted. I didn't know that this is where we were going. Intuitively, it feels like this is where I want to go. See if you're open to it. You were married for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to share with us, do you have any advice? You've gone through probably great times in the marriage, obviously low times. You guys split. What is there? Do you have any advice for women? I have clients. I have a lot of women around that are navigating relationship, and it's really hard. Do you have any advice, based on maybe regrets or things you would have done different, or what worked and all that?
Absolutely. I think that my biggest piece of advice is hold on to yourself. And it's such a challenge to be separate and be together. Um, my ex-husband was in law enforcement, and that's a whole different personality.
Yes.
And I always tried to respect that. And, I couldn't be upset if he worked on a weekend. That's like him being upset if I worked on a Tuesday. I always tried to respect that. And in doing that, I just stepped away and we started living separate lives. We had our girls, which we both adore. He's a wonderful dad, always has been. But watch out when you start feeling like roommates. When you walk in the house and you don't even really say hello, really reconnect. I didn't make it a priority to reconnect, to have just us time. And in my mind, I was just very family oriented. We did everything with the kids. That became a crutch to not have to connect with each other. He probably has, his own story of why he feels things didn't work out.
Of course.
But that is really the biggest thing that I look back, and my responsibility was that I lost myself.
Yeah.
That's on me. That nobody else is responsible for you keeping yourself and developing yourself. And it's just so easy to get consumed by everything else you have going on in life. So that really is the biggest thing. And I have, friends that I always thought it was nice, but nothing that we really ever did. We have a date, and I'm like, well, you're not taking the kids. It just was just really odd to me. Now I know that's actually the normal way, but falling into that, living the separate lives, not cheering on, your partner, not wanting, not so much not wanting the best for them, but not always like being their biggest cheerleader and having growing resentment.
Can I ask you something? Do you think, because you actually started out with this, and I this is what I believe, but I want to hear if this is what you believe. Do you think the disconnection could start coming when we start disconnecting from ourselves? Because you said, like, as a mom, you were last place. Like you were mom, and you were at work, and then at some point you were a wife, right? And so I'm just curious, like I wonder if like that is also an indication of like,
I think everybody has their different views when they become a mother. My journey was a little different. I was never able to get pregnant. I adopted both of my daughters. I worked very hard to be a mother. Not that other women don't, but for me, it was not an easy process. My infertility was an unanswered prayer. I thank God that it happened. I have my daughters. But for me, I owed it to these girls. Like I brought them, were born in India. I brought them here. I owed them this perfect mother.
Got it.
And again, I look back and I wasn't a perfect mother,
Nobody
they'll tell you that today, but I tried my very best, and I know that my heart was in the right place and nothing was ever done of, malice or anything along those lines. But again, all of my energy went into that, and he was last. And I really didn't make a secret of it, because I thought, if I'm an awesome mom, that's all I need to be. So yeah, it's really tough. And I do caution women, whether you worked hard to get pregnant, whether, what happened on accident, whatever happens, however you become a mom, don't lose yourself and don't lose your partner, because the best thing you can do for your children is to keep your marriage strong.
So good.
Keep your family strong.
Do you think that helps women stay more empowered, is to stay connected, but like to stay connected to the family? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
I do think it is, because you have that partner. When you are living separately together, there's no bigger loneliness than when you're lonely with somebody.
Yes.
That sucks, and you can fill it with everything. You can fill it with your children, your friends, going to their sporting events, volunteering, all of the things that you do that are great things to do. But when you're filling a void because you're not taking care of what should be the most important relationship in your life.
Mm.
And I'm remarried.
You are.
I am. Thank
Congratulations.
you. It'll be 3 years this month.
That's wonderful.
I was blessed to find a wonderful man who I was not healed when I met. So he's so patient, and he's just a really loving, wonderful, great guy. So, and I find myself falling back into things, and it's like, no, no, I've been through so much, and I am going to learn from it.
Mm. So powerful. Do you think he helped heal you? Heal you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it isn't a matter of, I need a man to make me happy or heal me. Had I met him, when I was a complete mess, it wouldn't have happened. He could have loved me as much as he does or as he wanted to. That wouldn't have healed me. It had to come from me.
And when you talk about, so now if we go forward a little bit and we talk about, that really hard time, and you said it was 8 years ago, what were some strategies? What were some things that helped you heal?
Well, I told you that I started counseling. I only did a few sessions with this counselor. I just wasn't necessarily connecting with her. And I needed to do some stuff on my own, if that makes sense. And I had gone to my doctor as well when I got my referral. And she passed me this card. And she goes, I don't know if you're into this sort of thing, but I know this lady. She's a hypnotherapist.
Hmm.
I would have tried anything at this point, Autumn. So I made an appointment. I was driving to my appointment, and it was like $100 or whatever. And I'm thinking, I may as well light a match to this $100. So I went up there and I said, I'm too tight. You're not going to be able to, hypnotize me. And it is not at all, watch the clock.
Right. It's not.
And this woman, I mean, she doesn't do it anymore, but she is so near and dear to my heart. I probably did, I don't know, a dozen sessions with her. And that worked so well for me. And it's unconventional. Whether it was that I was ready to receive that, I don't really know why it worked. I don't really care why it worked. But the first thing, because before, like, I would go home from work, I'm really making myself sound sad, but and just be in bed. I live by myself with a dog. Yeah, you get it. You've been there. You just can't. You've done enough. Your social battery, your mental capacity is gone. So the first time after, I wasn't really sure. I left the session. Maybe it worked. I don't know. And I got stressed out, and I stood up and I put my sneakers on and I went for a walk. And it was like the strangest thing. And I'm walking. I'm like, okay. And that just really was, just starting little steps. And that's the thing. You don't wake up one day and everything's great. Little steps, you start taking better care of yourself. You start doing some things that you were interested in before. Photography is one thing that, is a hobby that I love. Started getting back into that, spending more time with my friends, not isolating myself, just slowly finding myself. But the self I was finding was not the same person that I lost in my 30s.
Really?
Well, you're not the same person. Once you get into your 50s, you're not the same person. So, and just really getting to the point of liking myself, letting go of that anger, that was major. That was just like the black cloud that followed me everywhere I went. That was huge, because anger just is
Well, I'd like to
poison.
highlight that. I think, anger really is poison, just like what you said. It really holds us back. Actually, so I study a lot on like the energetics and how energy impacts the body. And did you know that like fat and cellulite are actually directly correlated to excess anger?
Really?
In the body.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information behind that. And, and anger and stress is actually, if you go and you study Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, he talks about that's actually the core root of dis-ease in the body. It's all this anger. So I love that, like, you're bringing it up, and I just want to highlight it to anybody who's going through it. We need to look at it and stop avoiding it. And I also love that you brought up hypnotherapy, because I'm so into unconventional therapies, and I love that it worked for you. My mom was hypnotized when she was 40 to quit smoking, and she quit cold turkey after smoking for 20 plus years.
It's like anything, you have to be open to it. You have
Mm-hmm.
to be ready. And
You
I
were
was
ready.
ready.
Yeah.
I didn't, and I really didn't necessarily care what the therapy was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that I needed to do something. And I tried a few different things. That's something that really worked for me. I don't do it anymore. And I used to, my therapist would send me our sessions and I would listen to them before I went to bed. And I sometimes would fall asleep listening to them. That's when your subconscious is most open to these things. It really was something that helped in my healing. It wasn't everything. I had to do a lot of hard work. I still do a lot of hard work, but it was major. It was major.
And Bobbie, one thing I know about you from knowing you personally is you haven't always been entitled. You've done a lot of things. Would you be willing to share with us? Like, tell me about your career. Like, what does that look like? Because the reason I'm saying this is because so many people just think it has to look one way. Like we get in and we stick with one thing and we're going to retire from it and that's it. And I can tell you, like your girl knows, life just throws you curveballs. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about.
Well, honestly, when I was young and people asked me what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a mom. And
Hmm.
honestly, I never had, even as I got older, I never had any career aspirations. And it wasn't that I was not intelligent. It wasn't that I wasn't ambitious. It just I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be a mom.
Hmm.
So when I finally did accomplish that and I adopted my first daughter, I was all in. And I primarily worked part time as much as I could. I really wanted to be with my kids as much as possible. I did do some jobs. I worked for a municipality. I ran their general assistance welfare program,
Wow.
and had a few other things that I did. And then I decided to go to school. I got my paralegal degree. Wasn't really sure in my mind. I wanted to work for a district attorney. I did not expect to go into real estate, but that just sort of happened. And once I got into it, I really liked it. But I really like that you brought up the point that people feel stuck or they feel.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you what, I think that all of the information that comes at us, like I love self help. Like
Hmm.
I love your podcast, other podcasts. I'll listen to audiobooks. I drive a lot. So that's something that I do. And one thing I get discouraged, not with you, but with some of them, is that you're a loser if you are just sticking in your 9 to 5. Well, no. And it's a bad message in
Yes.
that you can have your 9 to 5. I have a mortgage,
Hmm.
and I like my job, but you can find other things that fulfill you to add to.
Yes.
So everyone that says, yeah, I quit my 9 to 5 and I started collecting butterflies for a
Yeah.
living, whatever it is you decide you do. Most people, you'll find that they actually did that. They had a strategy. They didn't just walk in and quit one day. And I think that I don't like that message that if you're stuck, you're never stuck. And if I don't think anyone should stay in a job or a situation that they're miserable, that they're, it's toxic, whatever. Make a plan to get out as best you can. But this aspect that if you stay in a job for 22 years, it means that you don't have any ambition. Because as you know me, I have a lot of ambition.
Yes, you do. And I love that you say that too, because you're 100% right. I think that there has been this notion that if you are in a 9 to 5, or even if you're a stay-at-home mom, as I have a lot of, and like you were a mom, and the, a lot of a sense of self-worth seems to be lost, and like people aren't highlighting that. I'm gonna tell you, being a stay-at-home mom is the hardest job, and I just don't care because I may be a dog mom, but I had a pack of 4 dogs, and I was working from home, and I'm just gonna tell you that drove me insane,
Mm-hmm.
insane because what people don't understand is it's very monotonous,
Mm-hmm.
it's very thankless. Everybody takes you for granted. You're not out, you're not socializing, but yet you have to be there. There's things that have to get done, right? And so, anyways, I just think that that's really important to highlight. And I just would like to say this is I just really want to emphasize for anybody listening, it doesn't matter where you're at. I think what, Bobbie, you've demonstrated so beautifully so far in this episode is the connection to yourself is what's key. It's not what you're doing. It's the connection to yourself, because if you're connected to yourself, then you're connected to the creator, whatever you believe that might be, right? So you're connected to yourself, you're connected to your intuition, your higher self. And for me, that'd be the divine. That's the creator, that's God. So that for me, if I can, that's the goal, is how can I be the person who I came here to be? And I just feel like it doesn't matter what that looks like. So it doesn't matter what it looks like in your life to the listener. Focus on being connected to yourself. What do you think?
I think that's perfect, because life happens and the hits are going to keep coming.
Yes.
They're going to keep coming. We're going to deal with tragedy. We're going to deal with loss. We're going to deal with disappointment. All of that's going to happen. And you need to be centered, as much as you can to be able to handle that.
So good.
You need to be able to pick yourself back up. I know it's a cliche, but you do. I mean, you get to cry for a minute. You get to be sad. You get to feel what you need to feel. It's a mistake not to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mistake not to feel the hurt, the anger, the pain, the sadness, whatever it is you're going through. You need to feel it. You need to process it. You need to do what you need to do with it. And then you need to let it go.
And Bobbie, why do you think? So I started this episode kind of talking about how what I have found is the pattern of women who are making the most impact in our state. But I'm going to have an idea that it's the people making the most impact in the world. But I'm just going to, what I have found, because I can attest to what I've done, right? It's the people who are making the most impact have suffered the most. You have gone through some shit. and I think we're just tipping the iceberg with you, but you really, really were so beautiful and vulnerable in sharing that. And I really, really appreciate that. What do you think shifts in somebody? Or maybe you could speak for yourself, where when you go through this really, really, like the hardest time in your life, like you said, right? Like it takes everything. You're holding on by a thread and you're here, but it's barely, and you're just going through your day to day. What shifts do you think for somebody to then be able to take that pain and then help others?
Well, as far as the shift, I think that we all have those. I call it a defining moment, but whatever it may be. And it may be a slap, like a car accident that I had, or it may be something more subtle. But you trust your gut. You know that I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm making some not great choices. I'm not doing what's best for me or my family, or. So
Yeah.
listen to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk so much about your gut in your trainings and your situational awareness and your resiliency training. Listen to your gut when it comes to protecting yourself in that way, and knowing that you need to shift something. You might not even know what the shift is going to be, but listen to your gut to make the shift and decide. It might just be, today I'm going to go for a walk. Today I'm going to make an appointment with a therapist. I'm going to talk to my best friend and get some of this out that I've been isolating myself and just not talking about everything and pretending that everything's okay. And let yourself be vulnerable. I honestly am sharing this story not to boo-hoo. Many, many, many people have gone through a divorce, and it affects everybody in different ways. This is my story. This is my experience. But I just share it to let people know that they're not stuck. They're not stuck.
So good. And it's so relatable. And Bobbie, you really brought up a lot of points that I just don't think are talked about enough. And whether people are actually getting a divorce or breaking up or literally just in a marriage or a relationship is really hard for them, I really feel like they're going to hear what you had to say. And I really feel like it's going to be helpful. I've got 2 questions left.
Okay.
My first question is, what would you like to leave our audience with? Is there anything that you'd like to say that we haven't already said? We've said a lot.
Yeah, I think my message I'd want to give is, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. Stop comparing your loud, messy, beautifully imperfect life with these curated, almost catfished lives that we see on social media, online, it makes you feel sometimes like shit about yourself.
100%.
It's like,
Oh,
and okay, you know what, maybe, and I love to share happy moments. I love to see other people winning. I love that. So share your happy moments, share your highlights, but just when you're looking at that, understand that that person might be sharing a great day they had or an accomplishment. They're not telling you about the week they had where they you know got angry with their boss, they had an argument with their husband, they have 4 loads of laundry to fold. I do at my house. They just made it through to get to work, to get to the baseball game. That's the person that was up at midnight because they forgot to wash the uniform. Really, that is the normal woman. Mm-hmm. So it's really frustrating to me, and I fall into it too, mm-hmm. that influencers are trying to influence you, mm-hmm. and they're more often than not doing it with unrealistic, curated, staged situations that us as women are not are not living and really can't relate to. And if you are comparing yourself, you're going to fall short. There's no way you're not going to fall short.
Bobbie, I love that, because I have to tell you, so there was this woman who I have followed for years and years and years, and she is a self-made multimillionaire, and her her social media is literally perfect. She looks absolutely stunning in everything. Her kids look perfect, her house, her vehicles. I had to unfollow her because I'm like, I do not measure up. And it was so hard. I mean, I've bought courses from her. I mean, I followed her, listened to her podcast for years, but just like I got caught up in, like, even when I was like, what would happen to me is, even when I wasn't looking at her social, I'd be thinking about it. Well, I don't look like her. I don't make as much money as her. My house is, I don't drive a G-Wagon. I don't, right? All these things. And I felt I'd spiral. So I think that's like the best. That's like the best.
Well, advice. I mean, not even just in social media, but just in life. Some days you're just going to get through the day, and that's the win. Mm-hmm. That's the win.
So good. Bobbie, where can we find you? We want to hang out with you. I want you to remind us of the podcast.
So the podcast that's on hiatus right now is a Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I do have a Facebook page and a website, mainrealestateroundtable.com. I'm not huge on my social media, is primarily private, my family stuff. But as far as the podcast and my public life, that is through the podcast. And then Trowoji and Baldacci is the company that I work for. So I'm out there for them a lot as well.
And we'd like to thank Next Home because they are allowing us to use their beautiful, if you can't see, we are in orange chairs.
Yes, we are Next Home Orange. Thank you, Tim Bush, John Cotto. Love you.
Yeah, thank you guys for letting us record here. And we will see you next week with another fantastic episode. Thank you.